10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 347. Hey everybody, welcome into episode 347 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Really excited to have you back in. This week we're going to continue our series on the great Thelonious Monk. We're going to talk about something that Monk loves to do, and we're going to give you a great way to start practicing this sound in your own playing. Give you some really practical advice on this. As always, just wanted to remind you this is a listener-supported show, which means we rely on the people just like you that are benefiting from this to keep us in business. We do that through the Patreon platform, and in return for a small monthly donation, you do get access to PDFs and audio examples with every single episode. Wanted to give a quick shout out to some new patrons this week. Thank you to our new $5 patrons, Gordon and Elle, and thank you to our new $3 patron, Matt. Welcome to the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson family. We've got over 350 people supporting us over there, and if you want to become a member and get all the benefits in return for your support, you can go to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, or you can go to patreon.com and search for 10-Minute Jazz Lesson. All right, let's jump into today's episode. So today we're going to look at an example from one of my favorite albums, Solo Monk. This is all recordings of Monk playing the piano solo with nobody else. And this truly reveals the genius of Monk, in my opinion. You know, I mentioned last week, some people don't think about Monk as a piano player first and a composer second. Usually it's the other way around, and I think that's totally valid. But when we listen to this recording, it is so clear just how great of a pianist Monk is. And we are going to focus in on the song Ask Me Now, which highlights one of Monk's favorite devices. He loves to use the whole tone scale, and particularly on this song, he loves that whole tone sound. So as you're listening to Ask Me Now off of Solo Monk, you'll hear things like this. Or you may hear something like this. Now, what do both of those things have in common? They're both really long and beautiful whole tone scale runs. Now, let's think about where we can use this stuff. So a whole tone sounds great over a regular dominant chord, if you're looking for a really kind of outside sound. But it particularly sounds great over dominant chords that have an altered 5 or an altered 13. So think about a chord like B flat 7 flat 5, or B flat 7 sharp 5, or something like B flat 7 sharp 11 flat 13. Those are really chords that lend themselves to that whole tone sound, and they also happen to be some of Monk's favorite chords to use in his compositions. Like that first little excerpt you listened to was actually over a dominant 7 flat 5 chord. The second one was over just a regular old dominant chord where he sort of superimposed that whole tone sound. So I figured today what we could talk about is how to get some flexibility with the whole tone sound and where to use it. So what I've done is I've prepared a little backing track for you that's in a ballad style, because after all, we're looking at this ballad, Ask Me Now. And what we're going to talk about is the fact that the whole tone scale is a really, really simple scale, right? It's just a scale made up of whole steps. And there's only 2 of them, because once we get beyond 2, it just starts repeating itself. It's one of those scales. So when it comes to using whole tone, it's not that we have to spend a month learning 12 new scales. It's just that we have to come up with logical ways of getting comfortable with the scale and then where to use it. So let's use a ballad as an example. I think one of the most important things you can be on a ballad is really flexible, meaning that you can play any subdivision of the beat and you can do so with total freedom. So let's talk about maybe how we would develop that using a whole tone scale as a harmonic example on how we would develop that flexibility. So if you take a look at your PDF, what you will see is I have a concert B flat whole tone scale written in a bunch of different rhythmic varieties. So the first way that we play the whole tone scale is in eighth notes. Now, let's logically increase the speed by changing the subdivision. So now we're going to play it in eighth note triplets. All right, now let's increase the subdivision again. You guessed it. Now we're going to play it in 16th notes. Okay, now we're going to go a little bit further. Now let's play it in 16th note triplets. Okay, now let's go really crazy. And since we're playing over a ballad, let's do it in 30-second notes. Something that we should all be shooting for is to have our subdivision go that far. Here it is in 30-second notes. Now, probably when you heard 30-second notes, you're like, oh my gosh, there's no way I could ever do that. But now hearing it, you hear that at this tempo, 60 BPM, it's not that fast. You can definitely do that. So that is going to develop your flexibility by, relying on each one of those subdivisions, getting them all perfect. And then all you have to do is decide where to use it, because now you have the ability and you have the comfort to play all of those different subdivisions. Now it's just a matter of, all right, where in the progression of whatever I'm playing will this fit? So again, you could look for a dominant chord. If you see a dominant 7 flat 5 chord, that's a great place to use it. Dominant 7 sharp 5, or like a more altered form of the dominant chord, so something like sharp 11 flat 13. That's another great place to use it. So now once we get all of these down individually, now what you would want to do is you'd want to really test yourself, see if you can go right from one subdivision to the other without stopping the backing track or without stopping and thinking. There'll be a little bit of a pause in between each subdivision naturally with the longer note at the end, but can you flow effortlessly from one subdivision to the other? Well, let's see if I can do it. So it was okay. There's definitely a lot more work that I want to do on that. But could you imagine how comfortable you would feel after playing all those subdivisions right in a row and knowing that you could do it? You'd be much more open to actually using this sound in a variety of places. So, your homework is to start with each subdivision individually and then start to move into the ability to play them all together back to back without stopping that backing track, which I'm going to give you. All right. Let me know how it goes. Thank you, Thelonious Monk, for another lesson. I love being able to just take one little thing that he plays and come up with an entire practice plan off of it. And that's what he's done for us here. So if you want to get the backing track, the PDF, everything that goes along with this episode, go over to Patreon and sign up to become a monthly supporter. You can do that by going to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, clicking on one of the Patreon banners, or you can go to Patreon and search for the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson podcast. Hope you're all doing well out there, and we will see you next week with another brand new episode. Have a good one, everybody. Bye.